Ready. All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all can hear me all right. Okay, so today I'm here not to talk about my wonderful project, which I lead and participate in. Do check them out. But what I'm going to do here is to take this opportunity to honor many open science researchers, practitioners, advocates, and communities who I have learned a lot from. These people have laid ground for open science to move from being open source software to being an open for people, open by design, open by inclusion. They have created a field for us to really take advantage of this democracy. We have equitable and accessible science field that everybody can share their experience and their resource and their domain expertise in. As I said, I've learned a lot from others, and like anyone in open science, I'm literally standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm here to share some of my experiences, lessons, and resources with you. I have designed my talk with 10 arguments in open science that you can win. A disclaimer is that the arguments here means our personal inhibitions and struggles towards moving into open science. There are some concepts that I have encountered, but I know that there are many more, so don't be shy to share your experience in the chat as I give my talk. I hope that through this talk, we will be able to build a common understanding of open research and open science as we continue to advance our knowledge and keep working. So let's start with open science. What it means. Open science is not just about one aspect. So as we saw that Alex was giving a talk about what open science means, it's an umbrella term. There are many aspects to open science. There are data, there are software, citizen science, education, learning, sharing, and everything. And it's quite overwhelming. So if someone says that you can do open research, they have to also give you a chance to learn about it. Over the past year, we've also added a lot more concepts like this FAIR principle, which to make our research objects findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Then you have lots of tools, practices, and methods to learn, which again, it is not very easy to do. So we need to acknowledge that there is a particular barrier that comes with learning a new technology or new concept. And we need to give chance for people to explore that in their own time. So with that understanding, we can obviously see that open science is not perfect like any other scientific field, and how we encounter people in our day-to-day life will ask us to justify our stance. And therefore, beyond just learning what open science as a definition means, we need to go a bit more deeper in order to create a more accessible environment. So the first point, or first argument is that open science is not perfect. That's a solid start because that's basic. It's not really open for everybody as it inherits the systemic barriers that exist in science overall. Often our vision for open science or openness is impacted by what our institution says, or what recommendation has been made by people around us, or what this handful of decision makers are doing that impacts our day-to-day life. It often limits our ability and understanding to engage with open science practices in a more free manner. Even when people put their open research out there, it doesn't mean they are open. They are definitely on internet, but we need to make sure that they are with proper permission, that anybody should be able to look into your data, look into your code, access everything, and have the ability to build upon that. So how do we address that? Instead of proving anyone wrong about the fact that science is not always open, which is completely right argument, we have to respond by sharing how we are making our scientific areas open and inclusive by applying practices that involves people. For example, show them how you use open license in your code or in your repository, how you create open documentation for different components that you're building, how you apply FAIR principles, and how you're creating platforms that are truly open for everyone, irrespective of which geographic location they come from. Also, if you want to be a little bit more open, you should ask them, what else can you do in order to add extra layer of openness that makes your work more accessible and inclusive for them? The second argument is open science has historically lacked diversity and exhibited a non-inclusive culture. It's completely true. Open science has a history of practicing approaches that have institutionally given more advantages to the privileged group of people and have maintained inequality in many open research spaces. Open science is truly open when it's inclusive and equitable to a diverse group of individuals who are empowered to bring different skills and perspective to conduct research collaboratively. I wouldn't even go in detail of what open access arguments are about, because of course things that they're expensive to publish. So even if you make open access, you need to make sure that people are able to do that and they have the means and resources to continue doing that. So keeping all those arguments in mind, let's agree with your opponent and tell them that you want to design your project and your community, which is inclusive, by creating and welcoming an accessible project, environment, infrastructure, software, whatever you build. And you can achieve that only by involving people of different skills, different expertise, different experiences, in order to be challenged in a way that you cannot get challenged by people who share your thoughts. Next one is current open science culture is built on the Western mindset. It's hard to contradict. If you go back to learning about open history, you would see that this has been forever the case. Most discussions and actions on open science are driven by institutes and players from West, which means that the focus often remains on the development of tools, funding models, and infrastructure that often lack an understanding of underlying power structure, in turn influencing who is or isn't able to participate in the development process. As a result, what happens that a lot of people are inadvertently excluded. People who are underrepresented, who are from underrepresented groups and communities, do not have equal chance to participate, or even the technology that we are building are not reproducible in low or middle income countries. To continue with our arguments or counter arguments, well, we need to make sure that we have spent some time learning about contextualized or situated knowledge. This explores how all forms of knowledge reflect the particular condition in which they are produced, including social identities, social locations of knowledge producers, and so on. You're lucky today because Leslie Chan will be talking about it. And honestly, since 2018, I have read so many papers and books by him that I'm very excited to listen to him. So please take some chance to read some of his papers, which really explores these nuances of why contextualized knowledge is important and how we can integrate that in our work. But to simplify it, that let's assume you know it and you want to apply it in your work and projects and community. You can respond by sharing how you're ensuring the decision-making process involves people with different lived experiences, skills, and background beyond the West. Next is my institute's policy would not allow me to share my work openly. If you are working in academia, I don't need to justify it, but in general, those who are not from academia, we all work in a very precarious contract situation. We often lack job security. We often have to move from one stage of short-term contract to next stage of short-term contract. And therefore, it's not unreasonable when someone says that, well, I don't have any power to influence my institute system in the way they engage with open science. In this whole process of policy making within institute, there's not just one person's idea. There is authors involved, publishers involved, there are librarians and universities, funding agency, and so on. So there are many people who make decision how certain institute takes the open science route. So I have two thoughts on this one. First is that because most of our research are paid by public funding, we need to produce our work and share it with the public openly. Another is ethical research. If we open our work, we allow more people to look at our work and catch errors before they make their way into news, for example. And even better thing to think about with open science is that you can attract collaborators and fill the gaps that you may have in your own research. But of course, if your institute doesn't allow you to do that, I wouldn't ask you to fight your system. What you can do is that you can think about it, how I can prohibit from happening. So how can I design a project which actually allows me to share different aspects of my work openly? If you're writing a grant proposal, you can actually make a case for publishing all your research components openly. There are, again, quite a lot of data management resources that you can have a look at. Here are two examples that I've added underneath. Those were four very difficult arguments, and I'm now going to move to some simpler arguments, which is the biggest one is my work is not good enough to share. This is a very compelling argument, and it is not just about open science anymore. People are genuinely unsure about their work or suffer from self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Literally, everybody I know who I admire for their work have said this to me, that they have imposter syndrome. And I wouldn't lie if I don't say that I have imposter syndrome sitting here and telling you what open science means. Everybody literally feels that. So the only way we can address this is by telling them how we started our journey in open science and how they can become part of this process. So for example, you can show them different ways that they can slowly start opening things, ask for feedback from people, integrate innovative ideas given by others, improve the quality of research, and reassure them that you have felt that too. So this is not a place where we want to fight with anybody, because this is a very shared experience that we have. Second, the sixth argument, I will definitely get scooped. So this is very expected argument after someone says, oh, well, my work is not good, but then what about if someone steals my work, right? This is a mentality that we've been told ever since we entered science, that we need to be unique, we need to produce unique knowledge, and we need to advance science that gives us advantage in our career. But science is about driving innovation worldwide. No matter in which field you're working, your main intention is to make it better than what it is right now. Therefore, I would say that the scooping feeling is hard to win, but if you can make case about why sharing work with others actually allows more attention and more reuse of your work, hopefully that gives a different perspective to what research is all about. For example, we learned about how COVID-19 has progressed just because people started to share their work early on. If you want to, again, avoid scooping, what you can do is to add license, create documentation, create a particular section that says how someone can cite your work. And again, if you find someone else who might have copied your work based on these bases, you can always make a case for intellectual property right. Next is, I wrote this code for my data. So this is actually true for literally everything we do in research. We code for certain data. We write our paper for certain field. So they're always quite specific. Another point is that you don't need to publish all the scripts that you ever write. You should publish what you think people can use. If you used Stack Overflow, you would know that literally everything is useful for someone else. So it's not quite straightforward when we say that you should be able to put your data online. At the same time, when you want to put data online, it's just not enough to put data, code. You want to write documentation about what this code does, or what dependency it has, or what license is attached to it. So it's a lot of work, and it's probably not very useful for people who don't see incentive in sharing their code online. To address that, what we can do is show them how this is useful for somebody else, something that you might have done that led to another research, which could be a great example. However, simply speaking, what you can do is to offer them help in putting some of their code online, offer them help in opening their repository for other people to contribute into, or develop documentation, and so on. Next argument, I can't maintain it, so why bother sharing? And this is my favorite one, because if you don't really care about it, why don't we just put it online and let people deal with it? And this is definitely something that, again, takes some time and some guidance. But I really believe that if you want to collaborate with someone else, or if you want your work to progress, even if you're not anymore interested in it, you need to build your project around the fact that someone else will find it interesting, or someone else will bring a skill that you don't have, and they will be able to lead your project better than you. Sometimes it's a hard decision, but this is something that I wish everybody takes into account. So when talking about putting things online, we want to put things online not because we don't care about it, but also because we've spent a lot of time writing something or creating something. So it will be great that someone cites us for the work that we have done. And luckily we have Orchid ID, we have Zenodo and Figshare where you can upload anything. To that point, all my slides are up on Zenodo that you can find using this link. The ninth argument, what if people judge my code and preprint? So that's actually a good thing, right? We want people to be objective about science. So previous talk definitely says about a lot of things that we shouldn't just read paper and believe that everything is true. We need to be objective. We need to question a lot of methods because that's only when we try to understand what is the right science and what is the bad science. Also, not everything on the internet that is labeled scientific is true. So part of being objective is judging research quality by transparency, reproducibility, and reusability standards. So tell your opponent that by making their research open, they will take a step towards being more inclusive and creating more accessible research. This will allow more people to look into their codes or preprint and judge them in a good way to ensure that the highest research quality is maintained, that you follow the ethical framework. It may take some iteration before all these processes start to make sense. Final argument, my work will not be acknowledged and that's not helpful for my career. First of all, this is not just a problem in open science, but I can totally imagine that in open science, a lot of work stays hidden. A lot of bug fixing, a lot of reporting are not part of authorship that we are told is the way to go. So it's not a problem only for open science in terms of volunteer work or unpaid work, which fairly unfairly incentivized system in science to continue to allow people to enter the workforce, gain new experience and advance their career. It's a good thing, but only for those people who are able to do that. Not everybody can work for free, or not everybody has the time to work for free. So this disproportionately affects people from marginalized groups who often can't afford to be those free workers. It would be unfair to tell you to play along with the system, but what you can do is point them to some communities, projects, and programs that welcome contributions from different and diverse members based on different skill levels, but offer meaningful incentive as a value exchange system. There are quite a lot of resources. To name one of the resources that is useful, but probably very UK-centric, it's called Hidden Ref, that tries to give a lot of different hidden roles, reward and recognition. Here is an example from the Turing Way, that one of the projects that I'm involved in, where we have spent a lot of time in identifying different ways we can acknowledge our contributors. So with that, I will give you just a brief overview of two projects that I'm working on, from where I bring all these ideas and experiments experience from. So first is Turing Way. It's an open source project that involves and supports its diverse community to make data science reproducible, ethical, and inclusive for everyone. All the concepts that I was talking about, you can definitely find a chapter on that. So it's a book, it's a community, it's built on open source project infrastructure, and we promote a culture of collaboration. The second project that I'm part of, it's Open Life Science. It's a mentoring and training program that enables people, whether newcomers or long-time practitioner, to become open science ambassadors. So this is how it looks like. In 16 weeks, you would have cohort-based training, one-on-one mentoring, followed by hands-on practice where you can apply things in your context. So that was a very quick plug of the work that I'm doing. Before I go away, let me tell you, arguments are not great. So don't look for arguments. And there is this set of rules I will say has saved me a lot of time and patience. It's called Charles' Rules of Argument. It starts by saying, don't look for argument. State your position once, speaking to the audience. Reply probably one more time to correct any misunderstanding. Do not reply again. Spend time doing something fun. Take care of yourself. Dance self-care, whatever makes you happy, it's really not worth talking to people that is toxic for you in a way. So to summarize, here are my rainbow slide that open science is definitely hard, but there are ways that we can do to make our work a lot more inclusive. We can create a community, make sure we are involving diverse stakeholders in the decision making, that we lead our science with ethical and moral standards, and design our project to be open from the beginning. We want to also offer some mentorship and support to people who are starting their journey, and also show them different ways they can get cited for their work. Often bugs are featured because if you have problem, other people who notice it will be able to participate. As I said, that I'm here to acknowledge a lot of work that has been done before me, but I also want to acknowledge some of the communities that I asked that I'll give a shout out to. There's a link here. If you want to add more communities there, please go ahead. These are some of the communities where some really incredible works are happening, and they're open for people to join in. So if you are still not part of an open project, open conference, open event, maybe explore some of these. With that, I'd like to tell you that I have literally read my whole blog in this talk, because this talk is based on a blog called 10 Arguments That You Can Win in Open Science. Slides are available on Zenodo. You can also find a partly translated in Spanish by Florencia, and all the artwork are done by incredible Scriberia that are also available online for CC5. And I'm happy to take some questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Malvika. That was a really, really good talk. It was really interesting. And I really like the points that you made about the importance of mentorship and support, because I think especially as early career researchers, sometimes it can be easy to feel quite lonely, trying to kind of break into the open research environment. So thank you so much. So we have quite a few questions. Before we get to them, someone asked a very good question for the moderators, which is whether the materials will be shared somewhere. And the short answer to that is yes. So we will share all of the recordings of the talks on YouTube, and we will share the slides on our OSF page. So we will make sure that the public gets that after. So Malvika, let me just see which questions upvoted the most. So someone asked, I think these two questions are related actually. So someone asked about your point on situated knowledge and inequity in open movements. How do you move between institutions, community spaces, scholarly societies that have not done this kind of self-reflection, e.g. about situated knowledge, without feeling constantly alienated?
That's a very good point. My first instinct is to find people who share your feeling, because of course you don't want to do it alone. It is super hard to be the only person fighting the system, and find seats on tables where the decisions are happening. And I know that this adds a lot of work. If you're able to do that, that's amazing. If you can't do that, find another routes to express your opinions and perspective. I think we need to really remind people that every single opinion and perspective is important to make change. Even if someone has not reflected on different ideas, you can talk about it. I think that's what I did today. I don't think that everybody talks about contextual or situated knowledge. And if you have heard it first time here, please talk about it with people in your own organization. It's very hard to move between unaligned values when the places that you work in are not working with the same principles. I don't have answer to that, but my personal trick has been always find people that your personal value aligned with. I really am very blessed to be able to work with people who have openness to learn new aspect and correct their mistake. When someone calls our mistakes, we are actually very happy that someone's actually helping us become better. So we need to avoid that feeling that, oh, someone pointed out my mistake and they're really wrong and horrible people. I think these people really care. That's why they took time to comment.
Yeah, really, really good point. This actually links in very well with another question that was just posted just now. So someone asked, how do you approach gatekeeping behaviors in your community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, So gatekeeping is a real thing. And I think gatekeeping, I have to say it, I don't know the history originally, but it started, of course, with the difference in technology is and skill people have, right? So if you're working in open source field and there are people who are just talking in jargons and software, and you don't really feel that you're part of the conversation, you would not enter. So that's the feeling of gatekeeping, that you can't enter a conversation because you're not invited in there. How do I handle these kind of feeling? So there are two ways to look at it, right? So if someone is in your community, they care about your community and they feel that they can contribute to your community. So you are not there to alienate them. You want to bring them into a discussion and hear their opinion, but at the same time, set a tone for your environment in a way that you care about inclusivity and you don't accept gatekeeping behavior. So it's not that you're shutting down somebody, but you're making sure that people who are entering your community know that you are building an inclusive environment for everybody to enter. Another way to deal with it, well, it's not independent. You have to have this one, and you should create multiple opportunities in your community to work on different aspects of your work. It shouldn't be just about one thing. Maybe someone really, really cares about software. Give them the chance to work on software. Someone cares about documentation. Give them a chance to work on documentation. And these are just two examples. There are literally thousands of work you can do within a community. And that's how you deal with bad behaviors and gatekeepers.
Brilliant. It's, yeah, from my point of view, I think it's just pretty much the ideal way that science should work, what you're describing. And it's wonderful to see an example kind of work in practice with the Turing Way. So what's the next one? So Daniel asked, early career colleagues are concerned that job search panelists will undervalue open research principles and outputs. It seems to me that more senior researchers on secure contracts have the opportunity to test the waters. Does Malvika or others in the audience know of a senior researcher who successfully secured a promotion off the back of open research principles, for example?
I'm so glad someone asked that question, but also I'm very glad, Alex, you mentioned the Turing Way. The Turing Way was started by Kirsty Whitaker. She's a senior manager. She has a leadership position to run tools, practices, and systems. And quite literally, she's single-handedly changing the course of research that we do in the Alan Turing Institute by ensuring that people are adopting open source and open science practices in their work. So yes, you can do that. It doesn't exist, but you can make your own position. If you're really passionate about it, and if your organization value your contribution, they will create positions for you.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I'm also very excited to hear if someone writes in the chat other example.
Perfect. So I think we have time for maybe two more questions, one or two. So one is actually following up on Daniel's questions from Hannah. So Hannah said, especially when open research practices are not applied perfectly and fully, as it might be a developmental process of adopting open research practices, how can you compete with others that might produce higher impact and or more publications in the job market?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's just a broken system. I do not have an answer to fix it. I just am the person who doesn't want to accept the system, and I'm one of several, right? So let me start by a disclaimer that I should have given in the beginning, that all the things that we talk in open science are not rules, in the sense that no one's going to sue you if you don't do X or Y, or doing just one of that aspect. So a lot of them depends on your own free will, what you want to do, what step you want to take in your research. If you are a young researcher who's not really comfortable sharing a project that they know another person is working on, I am no one to tell you that you should put it online, right? You have to make the decision for yourself that is it secure enough for me to put it online. At the same time, if you're working with personalized data, sensitive data, you're never going to put it online. You shouldn't put it online. So you need to take a decision between at what time do I take X, Y, Z step, and at what time I shouldn't, right? In terms of competing with high impact factor, I think that's the whole issue, right? Impact factor shouldn't be the basis to judge anybody. And papers should be counted after peer reviewed in any environment. But again, I don't have an answer to a system that I did not build.
That's a really good point. Okay, Malvika, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we'll have to move on to our break now. There are a few questions left